Before getting into this video, I wanted to quickly thank everyone who's checked out the channel recently. Yesterday we reached 100 subscribers, which to me is honestly amazing. I've only been uploading for a month now and I was not expecting to have made this much progress. So thank you all, and I hope the content's enjoyable. Today I thought I'd create a guide explaining some ways you can find food in DayZ. If you're a new player, you'll know by now that escaping the coastal areas without dying to starvation can often be tricky, but hopefully this video will help you out. As soon as you spawn, you'll be able to see these small fishing boats scattered up and down the coast. These have very high chances of spawning food, drink, clothing, backpacks, and also fishing rods. I'll explain fishing later in the video. Inside towns, you should obviously be checking all of the houses for food, but don't be surprised if you come out empty-handed, as fresh spawns are constantly coming through coastal towns. One of the main things you should be doing is listening out for chickens. You can kill and gut them for food, but you'll need a knife first. You can find these anywhere, but you can also craft an improvised one by combining two small stones, which can be found naturally along hiking trails. If you happen to find a pickaxe, you can also use that to mine boulders and get your stones that way. Once you've picked up the meat, you'll ideally want to cook it to maximize nutrition and avoid getting sick. However, it is possible to eat raw meat and be completely fine, and I will explain how later. Also remember that after gutting an animal, you'll need to wash the blood off of your hands at a water source, otherwise your character will get sick. Wearing gloves will negate this feature. You should also keep an eye out for greenhouses, as they have a high chance of spawning food and drink, which players often miss. In almost every town in Chinaris you can find fruit trees which randomly drop fruit on the ground beneath them. As long as the fruit isn't rotten, you can pick these up and eat them. Edible berry bushes also exist around the map, but there are far less of them compared to the trees. You can find mushrooms throughout the map as well, all of which in the current game are edible and can be eaten raw. They do, however, reward more energy if they're baked on a fire. Fruit trees, berry bushes and mushrooms are generally not worth actively searching for, but definitely worth keeping an eye out for as you move in between locations. Next, we have undoubtedly the best food method in the game, and that is hunting animals. All throughout the map you can find various types of animal that can be killed and gutted for their meat and fat. You can hear animals calling in the distance, and they can be identified by the demonic sounds they make. Unlike chickens, it's more viable to shoot bigger animals, as if you get too close you'll spook them and they'll run a marathon in the other direction. Obviously this comes with its risks, as you could attract hostile players to your location, so be careful. Once you've gutted the animal, you'll see a bunch of steaks and some fat. Animal fat is more or less the best food item in the game, so you should definitely grab it. You'll want to bake it over a fire if you can. But, like I mentioned earlier, if you're desperate, you can eat raw meat without risk if you have charcoal tablets or multivitamin pills. These can be commonly found in hospital and clinic areas. It's still worth aiming to cook it though, since you'll gain much more energy from it. To cook your food, you'll obviously need a fire. If you don't know how to make a fire, here's how. Using a knife, cut down a bush and get 3 short sticks from it. If you get a long stick, use your knife on that to cut it into thirds. Combine a short stick with a rag to craft a fireplace kit. You could also combine the stick with a log or a piece of bark from a tree, or combine a rag with a piece of bark. There's a few different ways you can do it. To light the fire, you'll need to craft a hand drill kit unless you have a box of matches. To do this, combine a short stick with a piece of bark. You'll be able to use that to light your fire. Once your fire is going, make sure you add sufficient fuel. You can just grab some more short sticks and throw them on there, or logs if you have an axe. You won't need too much fuel, since fires actually last longer than they used to in the current version of the game. So once your fire is going, all you'll need is a long stick, which you can then combine with your animal meat. You can then put that in your hands and cook it over the fire. Make sure you stop after the first cycle or you'll end up burning it. And that's the simplest method of cooking your food in DayZ. Another interesting method of acquiring food is through cannibalism, but I would heavily advise against it. Simple reason being, it just isn't worth the risk of the side effects it brings. Eating human meat has a chance of inflicting your character with the Kuru disease, which will cause your character to essentially turn crazy and start laughing out loud like a maniac. It completely negates your ability to be stealthy, and to be honest, it gets quite annoying. It also cannot be cured and will last throughout the entirety of the character's life. Human meat is acquired and cooked the same way you would an animal. Something important that you should remember is that the food and drink icons don't directly reflect how full your character actually is. You can eat and drink a lot more than these icons appear to show. A general guideline you can follow is to just eat and drink until the full stomach icon pops up, and then you can stop for a while. Another good tip to remember, when drinking water at a well, it's better to fill up a bottle, drink it, fill it up again and repeat. It will fill you up much faster, and it's also safer too. If finding water is something you also struggle with, remember that you can use the iSurvive map to pinpoint all of the different water pumps, which you can find in most towns. You can also fill up a bottle or canteen from lakes, swamps and rivers and use chlorine tablets on it to purify it. Finally, we have fishing, which is actually very effective and easy to do. There are currently two different types of fish you can catch in DayZ. Those are carp and mackerel. Mackerel can only be caught in salt water, so at the coast, whereas carp can be caught in freshwater, which is essentially any pool of water that isn't at the coast. Sardines technically exist in the game, but they can only be caught using traps which aren't available in the current version, but could come back in the future. Obviously you'll need a fishing rod, which you can find at the small fishing boats along the coast, as well as fishing hooks. You can also craft an improvised fishing rod using a large stick and a piece of rope. An improvised rope can be made by combining 2 stacks of 6 rags. You'll then need a hook and some bait. You can find regular fishing hooks around the map, but you can also craft your own from bones by combining them with your knife. Currently, the only available bait in game are worms. You can dig these up in grassy areas by using a knife or a shovel. Combine the worm with the hook and attach it to your fishing rod. It's also worth remembering that you can fish without bait, but it takes significantly longer. Stand beside the pool of water you want to fish in and hold your action button to begin fishing. All you have to do is wait until your character makes a catch and you'll see it on the ground if successful. Use your knife on the fish to prepare it. Eating the fish raw can actually make your character sick, so make sure you cook it unless you have charcoal tablets or multivitamin pills. However, it is still better to cook your food as you'll gain more energy from it. And that just about sums up this guide. From this point on, you should have a much easier time finding food and surviving long enough to make your way further up north. If this video did help you, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more content similar to this. It would mean a lot. Thank you for watching, and take care.